From Ipswich, we now have Therese Coffey, Conservative MP who sits on the Culture, Media and Sport Committee. And here in London with us, Heather Brooke, a Freedom of Information campaigner who you might remember her work led to the exposure of the MP's expenses scandal originally. Welcome to you both. Thanks for joining us. Heather Brooke, I wonder what you heard when we played that tape. What did you understand from it, the transcript?
I don't work for the Telegraph. I never have worked for the Telegraph. But when I heard that, it does strike you as a threat. If you're a reporter and somebody calls you up, mentions that they're involved with a very serious inquiry about regulating the press, and mentions that they were going to talk to your bosses, then that is something that you would as a reporter take as some method of intimidation to basically try and shut you out of the investigation you were trying to conduct.
Therese Coffey, is that what you heard?
That's not what I heard. I heard an advisor to the Culture Secretary suggesting it was inappropriate, effectively, to be doorstepping elderly parents of somebody who's just come out of hospital. And I know the reporter said that they didn't know, but it's clear that that's what the advisor thought. And indeed, Craig Oliver has made that suggestion today when he said that he contacted the editor of Telegraph to make that very point again.
And yet you heard Tony Gallagher say when 3 different sources contact you with the same message, it all adds up to something that starts to feel like a threat. You're on rather shaky ground at that point when you keep hearing the word Leveson.
Well, that's your interpretation. It's certainly not mine. The issue about Leveson has been going on for some time, but I've not seen any change in newspapers' attitudes in wanting to publish what they wish, and I think that's the right thing to do. I believe in press freedom, and it's right for them to pursue avenues, but they need to do that appropriately and within the grounds of the PCC.
And I guess that's the point, Heather, isn't it? If this line from Joe Hindley, the advisor, just applied to the parents' medical records, that's understandable. That would be intrusion, right?
Well, I think the point that's not that we ought to really focus on is that this is a reporter who's trying to stand up a story about allegations of an MP's claims that they're making on a second home, and she discovers that the MP's parents are in this house. So it's not really her fault that that these elderly people are in the house that is meant to be the MP's second home. First of all, I think that's an issue, and certainly that is a public interest piece of reporting. They need to go and try and stand up that story, find out who's living in this house, why are they there, and so it's really disingenuous to try and use this argument of privacy and that these are elderly people out of the hospital. The reporter didn't know that. And then in the context of Leveson, to kind of paint this picture at a time when the press was really under attack. And you can, to me, it just seems like a very forthright mechanism to try and use a privacy argument for a politician to avoid public accountability.
And Therese Coffey, more widely, there is a lot of anger by MPs, backbench MPs in your own party at the way the Prime Minister has handled this some 4 years on. Still to be at a place where this message is not getting through. There seems to be one rule for some and another rule for those, if you like, at the bottom of the ladder.
I don't see that being the case. There's been claim and counterclaim about the special advisors, but the central allegation made by another MP that Maria Miller was subsidising her parents' accommodation through the taxpayer has been rejected. Her parents lived with her 9 years before she became an MP. Her second home it became because she spent fewer nights there when she became an MP and moved to Basingstoke to start her family life there. And I think that's the central allegation that has been utterly rejected
and yet
by
the
the
Prime
Commissioner and the
Minister,
committee.
David Cameron, was the man who was going to clean up politics, let sunshine be the disinfectant, and yet here you have this very hazy understanding of whether it should have been £40,000 that she paid back, why it's only now less than £6,000, a 31-second apology. That's not the ring of a party that has got on top of it, is it? This is the Culture Secretary.
There's nothing hazy about it. Maria Miller, and going back through paperwork over many years, if you think this is nearly 20 years ago when the house was first bought and then subsequent improvements made to it, she's the person who found that she thought, oh, I may have overclaimed on this, did the calculations with her offset mortgage and put that forward. Now, the Parliamentary Commissioner took a view initially that they should be claiming mortgage only on the very initial price paid back in 1996 and not the mortgage that was there when she became an MP. And I think together the MPs discussed that with the Commissioner, and they've come out today to clarify that they recognise that it should be the value of the mortgage that was on the house when she became an MP.
Heather Brooke, does this feel to you now like a cleaner system that is starting to work?
Well, you know, I'm always amazed that I still get calls to come on programs like this to discuss a story which I worked on since, 2004. And regardless of the intricacies of this investigation and, whether we think an independent regulator should be, who's meant to be, whose judgment is final, is then overruled by a committee of MPs. I think the point being that if MPs really are concerned about giving the public a different view of politics, one that is more trustworthy, then this isn't giving that view. It looks very shady, dodgy, it's just a cozy, cronyistic, and I think that we need not just we need the reality and an appearance as well of propriety.
Thank you both very much. Thank you.